Best. Presumably. Hey Brent, could you check that you can hear the audio from this coming through in the Zoom?
Oh,
Blah, 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 blah.
yep.
Right?
Oh, so let's bring the meeting to order at 6:02. Can someone just grab some notes before Kevin gets here? So, thank you. Emily, Jen, Raymond, Brendan, Lynn, so far, and Brent is here. Okay, never, so,
Never,
huh?
never.
Never. So first of all, I want to welcome the guests. And I don't think, you're not doing public comment because, unless you want to, because you're giving us a talk. And, but I want to welcome Ray Finecki to the council. Thank you. So that's great. Okay, so I just want to, I want to change the order a little bit because Brent can only be here until 6:30, and I want him to talk to us a little bit about old business F. So we'll do those two, one right after the other. And we'll wait till Kevin gets here to look at the minutes. So I think we should just start with Brent. And you can come up or sit back there or whatever.
Yeah, did you want to start with the tree preservation ordinance or the list of native plant resources that you had sent over with Jen?
Do you want to do yours first since Kevin's not here?
Sure.
Yeah. So we put, Jen, with everyone's help, we put together this planting document and I sent it to Brent tonight, earlier today, so that we could talk to us about it. Do you want us to bring it up or anything?
I mean, it's kind of very general comments. I thought it was a very detailed and robust resource. What I liked about it was that the order started with the more basic and accessible things, and then moved into more of your detailed books, for the nerds basically, on the subsequent pages. But for general public homeowners and property development folks, having just those very accessible links. The one thing I might suggest, even though it would break up the order, is frequently what we see is those commonly reoccurring available from landscape, but registered invasive prohibited plants. Maybe that list could be brought up to the top as well. So that way, those who may only get through the first page of it and then don't make it to the end, at least the DEC prohibited list, I think would be helpful having at the top, if you're willing to take that service.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's kind of where we started on it.
Right.
With the idea again is that we will put it, we're going to put it on our website, but we're going to make sure the planning department either points to it or puts it on their site also. So that Sue Cahill can, or whomever can point to it when applicants are in front, have a project.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then just in general. So,
Okay, that's my notes.
all right, that's good. Okay. So there's going to be a new tree ordinance, and Brent is coming here to tell us about it, and he's looking also for a letter of support.
I am, and
Oh, and he's on, so you're gonna.
yeah, and I do not have sharing permissions for.
Let me see if I can give that to you.
Yeah, do you want to see if you ever look at that?
Yeah. Okay, what about now?
Okay, checking. Okay, we're good.
Great.
right, so you can just go back and forth between looking at the screen and looking at me.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, so right now the City of Kingston Laws and Rules Committee last month was able to begin their review process for proposed tree preservation ordinance that had been submitted by Mayor Noble. This very small presentation that I have will just go over some basic highlights. You all should have gotten a link to the full tree preservation ordinance, which is also on the City of Kingston's urban forestry page. Some things that are coming up as far as relevant dates for this tree preservation ordinance is on Monday, April 28th at 6 p.m. The city will be hosting a public information meeting here at City Hall. So the public could come and learn more about both Kingston's urban forestry practices that we've been developing and some more details about this tree preservation ordinance, and also share their questions, comments, and potentially concerns in that time. And then after that public information meeting, the next big dates on is that we're planning to ask the Laws and Rules Committee to review the preservation ordinance in their upcoming May 21st meeting. They've already gotten the same presentation I'm about to show to you tonight, and I am taking the time to meet with various members of the committee to hear about their questions and what they're hearing from their constituency as well. Should Laws and Rules decide that they want to vote to move it forward for a Common Council vote, that would happen at the Common Council caucus. That would be on June 2nd.
And then they would vote?
And I believe the caucus will be on June 2nd, and then I think they take it to a vote that night.
Okay.
And then the rest of the formalities of amending the preservation ordinance to the city code would happen at the subsequent full Common Council meeting the night after that.
That's my question.
Yes,
So what your quote here says, Kingston has the opportunity to join other New York communities by adopting a tree preservation ordinance. Do you have a sense of how prevalent is it across the state that other cities already have an ordinance?
oh yes, yeah.
So we're sort of the outliers and we don't have one.
Yeah. Great first question to go off the bat. And I'm happy to take questions as I'm going over the slides. It's only 5 slides.
Okay.
But, so as far as your question goes, what we see is kind of a general trend for New York State is that communities both with very large tax bases and very low tax bases tend to be the ones that already have established preservation ordinance. It's communities like Kingston, which are in that middle ground of being like a mid tax base, usually with some legacy of different economic employment levels and that sort of thing, is where the adoption of a preservation ordinance has not been as much of a priority. It's this weird midpoint of scale of there's enough people and enough trees, but not enough other resources to focus on this kind of legislation. Where we see a lot of tree preservation ordinances in the high income communities would of course be Westchester County, most of Long Island. Actually, the original tree preservation ordinances for New York State were all been Long Island, starting in either the 1980s or more formal ones in the early 2000s. Yeah.
So they've been around long enough that there's data associated with impact and outcome.
That's right, yeah. And then me personally, even though I'm new to New York State, in my position as a consulting forester in the Chicago area before then, tree preservation ordinances were extremely common in all kinds of different communities. The 3 communities that I focused as being a consulting forester on, 2 of them had tree preservation ordinances before I started. The 3rd one adopted one while I was working as a consulting forester, thanks to some like-minded members of their city government. That community had a population of about 60,000 people with a tax base relatively similar to Kingston. So that kind of gives a background on how a tree preservation ordinance serves towards the goal that, is at the bottom of this slide, which is benefiting the community by preserving Kingston's legacy trees. One thing that, if any of you get the opportunity to come to the public information meeting, is that we can kind of easily track a 40-year decline as far as data that we have in Kingston's canopy coverage. Right now, we have some really amazing mapping resources where down to census block, we can know what our canopy coverage percentage is for Kingston. We have some areas that are, over 40%, and that's the goal for, say, like the city of Atlanta is to get to 40% canopy coverage. They're known as like one of the greenest cities in the US. And then we have other parts, specifically right around where we are here at City Hall, where our canopy coverage is 16% or lower, which, then leads to sort of a heat island effect that creates costs for heating and cooling for buildings and that sort of thing. Where we currently see the majority of trees in Kingston's landscape is less so on streets and more so in areas away from streets and the public right of way. So the question really comes up of how do we balance the rights and also needs of property owners with trees that are on their property, with thinking more of a communal benefit that these trees provide. We can think about it at a larger neighborhood scale, or as simple as if you are a neighbor to someone that has a large tree on their property, that tree probably offers you quite a bit of shade for your home as well. And the removal of it could be a significant financial expense for your utility costs. And that's just, at the real basic, numbers sort of thing, not giving as much advocacy as I think there should be towards the mental health benefits to trees and communities as well. Yes.
Sorry, Brent, did you say that there's been a 40% decline?
A 40-year decline.
40-year decline, but we don't, that's all we know.
That's the data that I have available.
So there's less trees now than there were 40 years ago.
Correct, yeah, and if, anecdotally, one of the things that I can provide is, as urban forester, I talk to the community quite a bit while I'm out doing my tree inspections. I meet a decent number of community members who talk about how, they're in their 50s and 60s now. When they bought their houses in their early 20s, the streets were lined with trees.
But
Yes.
as you will probably talk about, and I'm really thrilled you're doing this, is that the
Yes.
city has been responsible for cutting down many of those trees.
You're absolutely right.
Because,
And I'm
and
so
I want to
excited
talk
to
about the sidewalk thing that's in the, because, I've lobbied about Henry Franklin.
Yep.
Every huge tree was taken down.
And I'm so excited to get to my slide that talks
Help jump in. I feel passionate about this.
Yeah,
yeah. So if I could, I'll press.
I just wanted to say that we have a tree ordinance, but this is a tree preservation.
Technically, what we have is one chapter of the city code that focuses around actions that has to do with trees, and that's chapter 373 of the Kingston
Okay.
City Code. For the most part, it hasn't been updated since the early 2000s, and a lot of the language goes along the lines of homeowners shall take care of their trees. So looking for something that's more informative and more detailed. And since you all have gotten to see the tree preservation ordinance and see that's about 30 pages long, that was my goal. So
Cool.
moving on.
Nice picture.
Okay, so what will the tree preservation ordinance accomplish? Big four things to notice. The first one is establish a tangible value of large trees within the city of Kingston. When I say value, I'm not talking specifically about a monetary value, but I'm also talking about the literal size value, the surface area value of these trees. One of the reasons urban trees are so important is because they provide shade. They also create cooler microclimates through their respiratory practices. And of course, stormwater runoff. A normal rain event of about 2 inches, that tree canopy will hold 50% of that stormwater in the canopy. And then instead of it all coming down at once, that water will trickle down off of leaf drifts, but then also follow the branches down the center of the trunk and slowly infiltrate into the ground.
And I want to make a note. Did
Yes.
you read about in Los Angeles, the neighborhood that burned? The trees did not burn. in Altadena, because they were full of water, they had rain, so all the buildings were burned.
Yeah, I believe
And so
those-
that really shows that trees are reservoirs of water.
Yeah, exactly. One of my many weird nature jobs in the past was as a wildland firefighter. And when I was working in San Diego on a fire, what we saw is that, this is just a fun little anecdote, but sycamore trees, which we have here as well, if you ever get the opportunity to see one during the summertime, I recommend touching the trunk. It's cool to the touch because of how much water they hold into them. And that groundwater is usually a cool temperature of around 50 degrees or so. Yeah, and so in, more wildfire prone communities, traditionally in the West, but as we saw this past fall, the Northeast is not immune to it either. These trees provide these kind of community resources outside of just the easy ones that we could rattle off, like shade and stormwater, that sort of thing. The second point, this tree preservation ordinance is to create clear guidelines on protecting trees, specifically during development. Right now, we've had some additional language brought in with the Kingston form-based code to help with trees during development. This actually gives clear, based off of mathematical and biological stuff with trees, how much of an area should we be protecting around the tree during development, and creates clear guidelines for developers to follow. This is probably the least new or unique thing about this preservation ordinance, as far as most communities already have some sort of tree protection area, which we've probably all seen at one point or another, the orange fencing that's in a square or circle around the tree. This actually gives calculations how to determine where that fencing should be in order to protect the root system of the tree as well as the trunk and the crown.
So this is in the ordinance, or this would be an amendment to the code?
This is in the proposed ordinance, yeah. The third one is, like I mentioned, considering the needs of property owners alongside the needs of the neighborhood. I'll get into more detail about that as well. Then finally, as I promised we'd get to, is develop transparency and accountability for city operations around trees. And with that, let's look at that first one of the tangible value of trees. One way to figure out how to protect and preserve trees is by determining the value of them. So this ordinance increases protections for Kingston's largest trees that are on both public and private property. Right now, the city code has protections for trees that fall within the public right-of-way, our street trees, and then also trees within our public parks. And the code really just stays in that zone. So what we find is that if property owners, either through not being aware of what the code says, or they choose that they're not interested in following the code's requirements, remove a street tree in front of their home, the city currently has a fine of about $1,250, which was recently raised over the last couple of years from, I believe, $300 before. When it was $300, of course, most people were like, great, that's just an extra $300 I got to spend, and not deal with the city and the bureaucracy. Unfortunately, what I'm finding from dealing with homeowners that would really like to remove very large trees, for whatever their reasons are, and there's many that, of course, we've talked about in the last time I was here, they go, well, if I'm already spending X amount, what's another $1,250 there? So to actually move it away from a fine, which can be a little subjective, to actually determining what the value of that tree is. We'll come back to it towards that last point there. But
I have two questions about that.
yes,
Has anyone ever been penalized, $1,250?
Yes.
My second question is, we have a tree inventory
yes.
that states the value of trees. Is that up to date, or would that work in conjunction with the
It would work in
ordinance?
conjunction with it. So that tree inventory was done in 2018. There's some basic projections that I could give as to those trees that are still around from that 2018 inventory, how much they've grown and what their perceived value might be at this time as well. And then you had another question in there too?
No, that was it for now.
Another thing that I should mention is that the next round of DEC grant funding, which is going to be state funds as opposed to federal funds that are available for urban forestry projects on an annual basis, they're planning that to be in the fourth quarter. I would really like to apply for those funds to update the tree inventory as we're moving past the 5-year period where that data would be very relevant from 2018. So sizing with tree preservation, what this ordinance would say is that all trees on public property, as well as trees with trunks that are 6-inch diameter at breast height, which is standard forestry measurement, or larger on private property, which, for a lot of people, brings the question of what size of a tree is that? 6 inches.
Very good.
Well, there's a picture right next to it. That is a 6-inch diameter trunk tree. To demonstrate the value of this tree, that tree is already the size of a 3-story home. And as a result, provides a ton of shade, both to the sidewalk area and to the building itself. As a result, to replace that tree, which we'll get to in the third bullet point, with let's say we do a 1-for-1 of that tree gets removed and a new tree is put in its place, we lose all of the benefits that large of a tree is currently providing. Those benefits, of course, I've already mentioned, are both in sort of like communal, quality of life sort of thing, but as was just mentioned about like the current tree inventory, that map of which is on the city government website, shows that there's real financial values that trees provide. When a tree withholds stormwater from immediately falling, that lowers the pressure on our sewer systems and our stormwater systems. When that pressure is reduced, that saves the city money. And if the city saves money, that's lower taxes that have to go towards maintaining those systems. Trees are a very, very straightforward part of green infrastructure, and they've preceded any concepts of current urban green infrastructure. And so the last part here, this ordinance would replace the current fine with a requirement to plant new trees. That is first intentionally or a calculated value. So what that means is that, that tree in that photo there, say the homeowner would like to remove that tree for whatever reason. We would ask that the value of that tree, as far as with replacement trees, be planted in its place. Place not meaning physical location, ideally a new tree both in that area, but then additional trees that make up what is in the ordinance referred to as a basic reproduction cost of the size of that tree. If you wanted to buy that size of a nursery tree from a nursery, or how many smaller nursery trees would it take to equal the same surface area of that tree? This is the basic reproduction cost formula that's promoted by most arboriculture and forestry certification bodies such as the ISA, and it's also the standard that other tree preservation ordinances use throughout the state.
And this would apply for private property as well,
That is correct, yeah.
Yeah, that's the.
which is like different from that.
That's amazing.
A quick question
Yes.
on the availability of these trees that
Yes.
we would have to be replacing for private property, private or public property. Is there a certain list that people go off of or data collecting, I guess, off of what trees should be allowed in relation? Most because in Philly, they have a problem with replacing trees with strictly male fruit bearing trees.
Mhm.
That creates an insane amount of pollen.
That's right, yeah.
So I was just wondering if that makes something similar to that.
Yeah, a couple of things I'd like to hit there. First of all, it's not in the preservation ordinance. There's interest from the city government to keep it a separate document because of how often it gets updated, but a approved tree species list. If anyone would like that list, it's available kind of by request right now. As the city is going through a large website redevelopment, the urban forestry page will have that list and a much more built out. Right now, it's kind of a boring looking spreadsheet, but something that's more visually engaging, both for developers and for community members, as far as appropriate tree species. Second one I want to hit on is that pollen thing. It's true that when tree species are separate sexes, meaning that they're dioecious, male trees tend to be planted in street tree settings. The female ones that produce fruit, and let's say it's edible fruit in this case, there's kind of a cultural barrier for most people to understand that that fruit is safe to eat. And then there's also a question of, is that fruit safe to eat? Balancing these needs for canopy coverage, as far as that being a community value, with selecting the appropriate trees for those locations. The overwhelming, the largest percentage of trees that are planted are actually monoecious. So they have both male and female reproductive organs on them already. So that would cover roughly about 3/4 of the tree species that get planted are monoecious. So what gets talked about quite a bit is like additional pollen loading that comes from cities planting only male trees, makes up, depending on the community, about 25% of the trees that are planted. The other thing that I want to mention with that is that also the size of pollen that different tree species produce may or may not have effects with humans. So like what really breaks my heart is that oak trees, which do produce quite a bit of pollen, they're kind of our worst culprits, even though they're like, you know, the top of the trophic scale when it comes to forest ecosystems.
And what about, so many of the trees are invasive, the Norway maples.
That's right.
So do you make a distinction with a Norway maple, which is so many of our street trees? It's a mixed bag, you know, we want to get rid of them, but a lot of them are large shade trees.
Yeah. I don't remember I mentioned this last time I was here, but from the 2018 inventory, a little over 20% of the street tree population is made up of Norway maple and Callery pear, which are, you know, two most unfortunate colonizing species that are native here. But for the approved tree species list, of course, those two are not on there. The approved tree species list is almost predominantly made up of native tree species. There are some non-native tree species that I have very thoroughly vetted, coming from a restoration ecology background as well, as trees that have been planted for, you know, roughly 80 to 100 years and have not shown habits of escaping cultivation. You know, that same time frame has existed for our three worst tree culprits being Norway maple, Callery pear, and tree of heaven. All of them, of course, we know escape cultivation, and we've kind of known that they've done that for well over a decade. Does that help with your question?
Yeah, and I guess also the other thing is like, I removed the Norway maple from my yard, but I planted other native trees.
And that is a net
So if
benefit.
you're replacing with native trees,
Yeah,
which this would require you to do.
Yeah, they're Norway and Callery pear are specifically in tree of heaven, are in the ordinance.
yeah. So some of the fine details is that, you know, one of the things that I'm really hoping to educate the public on with this proposed ordinance is, one, this ordinance still allows a process for removing a tree. It's more about managing that process. You know, have we considered the needs of the neighbors on either side? It also offers a lot of exemptions by having the trunk diameter set at 6 inches. All the weed trees that pop up in backyards along fences, you have the time period from when they're about this big to when they're a 6-inch diameter trunk to be able to remove them basically without needing to go through any permit process. On top of that, like you were just mentioning, there are exemptions for tree species made that are on an invasive species list that's within the ordinance as well. So, you know, if you're doing exactly what you described, is saying, you know, I have these volunteer Norway maples and tree of heaven and Callery pear that are showing up in my backyard, and you know, all those tend to be fast-growing species. They have gotten to a bigger size, or maybe I just bought this property and I'm finding that this is what I've inherited. There are exemptions put in place to allow you to deal with this problem of invasive species as well.
Mhm.
Yeah. Any other questions before I move on to the next slide?
Yeah, like my house, for example, is on the edge of the Delaware Forest,
Yes.
and we get a lot of black locusts that self-sow.
That's right.
And those are very fast growing,
They are, yeah.
and they can get to be more than 6 inches fairly quickly.
They can.
So is that covered? Is that a covered tree on the list?
Currently, black locust is not covered on there. There's a lot of back and forth in like the ecology, restoration, and tree science world
Right.
as to, is black locust being here because of its invasive habits, or is it part of species migration as climate change continues?
No, these were here since the time of the Dutch. That's always my house for that matter.
Yeah,
They-
the native range for black locust being
Right.
central Appalachia between like Maryland
Yeah.
and Pennsylvania, but where we're seeing, so like an example would be, what's the name of that big national park in Ohio? It's like,
Cuyahoga?
yeah, thank you. They actually removed black locust from their invasive species list, and they're considering it part of species migration.
Yeah, I'm not planning to take these down, but, some of them, they have very shallow roots and some of them blew down in Hurricane Irene.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole yard was covered in locusts, 100-foot tall locusts blew out of the forest.
Yeah, and so some other things that I want to
The
mention
retreats,
too,
top snap, too.
as far as what's in the preservation ordinance, when it comes to trees that may be like dead, damaged, or like a potential risk, after a storm thing, there's also a lot of processes to avoid a onerous permit process of like, even though your tree is obviously standing dead, or we just had an ice storm and it's fallen over on your house, we will not say, you need to go through a permit process and wait a month before you can remove that tree. There's a lot of things in place for the homeowner to be able to contact either directly me or Public Works to be able to move that process through in an emergency situation. And that also extends specifically only for emergency situations for utility companies as well.
Yeah, the other problem tree that I've noticed around a lot, and I think I have a few of them, but I've seen it elsewhere, like all over the Hudson Valley, is, there's a type of poplar that's very fast growing.
Yeah, the hybrid poplars, yeah.
Right.
I don't want to get too far off.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, I can move this forward for like 5 more minutes.
Okay.
To get through the rest of the slides, and then if you'd like, any additional comments, email it over to me as well. But okay, so trees in development, this ordinance has the clear tree protection zone that I mentioned. The image is a good example of that, where essentially the drip line of the tree, so the edge to the crown, is what we consider to be the most valuable root area for the tree. So this would keep heavy machinery from compacting soil around those areas and from storing any materials. Basically, it is a protected zone away from construction things. Now, in situations where the tree cannot be retained during development, that will be similar to what I was describing earlier, replaced by new plantings first. Again, it doesn't have to be at that specific spot on the property. Be considered throughout the neighborhood. There are plenty of opportunities for additional street trees to be planted. If the homeowner is not interested in going the route of planting more trees, and sometimes that is the case, then they also have the option to replace the lost asset value. So that's when I talk about the basic reproduction cost. There's also a way to calculate the value of that tree. That value, the rough calculation is, say we have a 10-inch wide trunk tree, and then we've got nursery trees that are 2 inches wide. It would take 5 of those trees to replace the same size, right? And that would be the beginning of it. The second part is, what was the condition of the tree? That tree was, maybe only had about like 50 to 75% of its crown dying off. That's a pretty low quality tree. 5 new healthy nursery trees is not the same value of it. It could be down to back of just, if this was a declining tree, maybe only 1 tree from a nursery is really replacing that measured and calculated value. It's more about having a process to understand what the value of the existing trees are.
So is this like an exchange, like if they don't want to put something in, it goes in somewhere else, or you just get money? Or you get,
We would prioritize the new trees being planted, and that would be like coordinated with the homeowner in those situations. And I would be able to identify additional locations if they don't want to just do it on their property. Should the homeowner just be completely uninterested in that process, but then we can talk about replacing the lost asset as a financial value.
yeah.
Moving on to the next one. We have a block thing here.
Yeah.
Okay, that's community homeowner needs. So healthy trees on one property may significantly reduce home cooling and heating costs for neighborhood homes. Hazardous and invasive trees have a streamlined approval process and no additional fees to apply for any of these permits either. The goal of this is not for the city to make money. The goal of this is to manage canopy coverage for community benefit. To touch a little bit more on the hazardous and invasive trees, as we mentioned earlier, the ordinance has a list of trees that are determined to be invasive that don't apply through this process. So if you happen to be a homeowner and you're just wanting to get rid of this tree on your property because it's invasive, we've made it a streamlined process to not slow you down from there because it's a net benefit, not just to the urban community, but the local ecological community as well. And of course, for hazardous trees, public safety is always the most important thing. So any kind of situation where the tree can be determined to be hazardous, that can be done through like a certified arborist, or if it comes down to the homeowner wanting to contact me, I have the certifications to determine a tree hazardous as well. As a little pause, even though I'm eating into my own time, there is always a difference between risk and hazards when it comes to pretty much anything. Risk is the potential for something to go wrong. Hazard is the proof that it will go wrong. So you can have a very risky looking tree that might fall and have like super big branches. If it's in the middle of nowhere, there's no target for that tree to hit. So that tree is not necessarily hazardous. So when I say the word hazardous, I'm using a very intentional term. And then the last one, the fun part is tree work transparency. So this preservation ordinance would also require public notifications of tree removals on public property. So when we talk about, the things that we saw with trees being removed for Broadway, Henry, Franklin, and other projects, some of the things that this ordinance would do would be written notifications to adjacent property owners of street trees that are going to be removed, and also signage on those trees saying that they're going to be removed, posted 30 days before the removal happens.
That's fine, but that's not really the issue, as you know.
Please go on.
And again, I know your time is up, and I maybe could speak at the public hearing, but the part about the sidewalk, I read, where it's like you're not sure the tree might come out if there's uplifting the sidewalk, a common problem in Kingston.
That's right.
I don't think the tree, if it's healthy, should ever come out. I think the sidewalk should accommodate the tree.
And there's certainly a
And
way
again,
that
so many trees the city has cut down.
Right.
I'm telling you, these are like 100-year, we're not gonna have this for 100
Yeah,
years.
one thing I'd encourage you is that this preservation ordinance it helped so much specifically with this, concern that you're addressing because.
Which is when they're redoing sidewalks.
Right,
That's
exactly.
when the big problem happens.
Yeah, exactly. There are so many other ways to reduce sidewalks besides, both at the scale of like these big street projects, and then also at the small scale of just the homeowner as well. And, when it comes to like our tree commission meetings where a homeowner is wanting to move the tree purely because the roots are uplifting the sidewalk. I think I mentioned this the last time I was here too, but like we could look at, does the sidewalk have the ability to extend further into the public right-of-way space without crossing the property line? The other one is that, of course, sidewalks do not need to be perfectly flat either. ADA code allows for up to a 1 to 12 or 5% grade for sidewalks. And that would be your more typical poured concrete sidewalks.
And right.
We, of course, have bluestone,
Yeah.
which only further.
But there was plenty of room for these trees. The
And I
sidewalk
agree.
didn't interfere with these trees. So what I'm saying, and maybe I'll comment later, is that I think there should be something in this ordinance about when the city is doing engineering projects, like sidewalk replacement,
Yeah.
there should be certain standards. That they can't, it's not just transparency, but are they allowed to take any
It's
trees
gonna
down?
apply to everyone, right?
Yeah, that's
The
the thing.
city as well, because they've been the ones most guilty of taking trees down.
That's right. And so to your point, the preservation ordinance has very specific language telling that the city has these requirements applied to them as well.
Okay.
The one thing that is not applied to the city, and I think I'll probably say goodbye after this point, is that, obviously the city can't pay itself for the value of the tree being removed, so that's not an option for the city. The only option in the possible situation where, yes, the tree is in total conflict, not with a sidewalk redesign, but a streetscape redesign. Maybe that streetscape is going from, a one lane or a one-way road that somehow is still 2 lanes wide and then additional has parking on either side. If that's being redeveloped into a more complete street with pedestrian daylighting and more green space in it, if the tree suddenly doesn't work at like the corner of the intersection or something like that, the city would then also be doing that same valuation to plant new trees. Instead of it just being, this preservation ordinance would make it a more calculated and enforced aspect versus the city offering the reassurance of, yes, we cut down the tree, but don't worry because we planted some extra trees.
Yeah, or, we're not gonna cut it down, but then we cut it down.
Yeah.
Complete streets makes me tremble in my seat. I hate complete streets.
So where's the Okay, so give us some deadlines.
So
So
we should
first
write
of
a
all,
letter.
first of all, you're asking for a letter of support.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
And so the deadline for a letter of support is,
So I believe that would be for the Common Council caucus on June
June.
2nd.
Okay.
Yeah, just when I'd be interested in having a letter of support. But exactly those kind of sidewalk comments, I want those things coming into the public information meeting as well. I think more conversation about this needs to be had at the community level versus just our most passionate people trying to.
And is that a hearing or is information?
it's
people can ask?
informational, but we
It's
can.
informational, but
But
there
people
will,
can comment.
So that's the April 28th.
Do we
So
want to?
in other words, we have, just a minute, so we have our May meeting to come up with a letter of interest or support.
yeah, you have
We
a
wanna do
meeting
that.
to be able to do that.
Okay, so.
And Emily, do you think we want to be at that meeting? Do we want to speak up? Oh, it's not really a hearing. I mean,
Not a
Well, it's
meaningful-
it's good for any of us to go.
Yeah, no, I
Are we
plan to
gonna go representing the CAC?
Yeah, there could be members
ourselves.
of the community that aren't aware that there is a conservation advisory council, that your
Yeah.
presence would let them know.
No, I think
Yeah.
we should definitely go and then speak, just say we're supporting this or something. We can
Yeah, I
talk
mean,
about
there are certain things, I'm gonna write you right away, because I have some questions.
Everyone
I
please
want
do.
you to take. I don't want you to take up any more time, because I mean, I read it, but I didn't read all 30 pages completely.
That makes
So I
sense.
do have some.
it. But I think basically it's a good thing though.
Oh, yeah.
It's
I
step forward.
appreciate you
Yeah,
saying
you should have
that.
led with that.
I'm so happy.
This is a good thing.
Yeah, I'm so happy we had a.
I'm gonna add that slide into the beginning.
Right.
That'll be the first slide for the public information.
Oh, yeah, people are not gonna think it's a good thing.
I'll be
tell you
really
that.
curious. I've gotten to talk to a lot of people who like really value like urban trees that are either like long-term community members or new to Kingston. And we're kind of surprised to find out that there's not very much protections for trees. And I've invited every single
Yeah.
one of them to the meeting.
That's good,
Yeah,
yeah.
but I think
That's-
one thing would be maybe education, like we're doing with pollinator gardens, about the value of trees is one thing, we could help offer support that way.
And I just,
And the
That's a
second
good
thing
idea.
is,
I have to leave.
and the second thing, we need someone
yeah,
like you.
okay.
Thanks,
all right,
Brent.
Good.
We all have your
So-
email, where we'll
Yeah.
distribute it to
Yes,
those.
Yeah.
because he was, I think he was, yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of the meeting.
Thanks.
You too.
Thank you, bye.
By the way, if you go to the tree commission or the urban tree site, they do have a map of the, it's not the canopy. Our natural resources have a canopy map, but they just have a map of the trees that are city, just along the streets and in parks. So it looks so pathetic because it doesn't put in the full tree canopy. But I do, my comment, some of my comments were, and I'll just send it to him, but they said that if it was like an arborvitae or something that's more like a bush, there was some, it didn't really count as a tree, basically. But the thing is that the form-based code says that those kind of trees can be, like instead of a fence, you can put something up as to screen, as a screen.
Hedge?
It's a screen, and in the past, screens have been cut down. Where like the planning board says, yes, you're gonna have these bushes, and then someone comes and chops them down to here, and then you're not screening the parking lot. And so the form-based code does say so, and usually those screens are evergreens, like an arborvitae. So that we want to make, and then another comment was I'm not sure what it said about if you needed to take a tree down so you could get solar panels on your house.
I didn't see anything about solar panels.
Yeah, and so that, I know that's a real balance, but I did have to take trees down when I put my.
It does talk about clearance for structures, so that might count as that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So
I have
those
some
are,
comments about that too, because it doesn't allow for clearance for sightlines, which are a major issue with trees, so.
oh, you mean like when you drive up?
Yeah, when you're trying to turn somewhere and there's a
Yeah.
bunch of trees in the way.
Yeah.
Are we supposed to be recording this? It says recording paused. I just,
It's still live from Julie's
oh, I said, okay.
thing.
Okay. Yeah, okay, you sure you're We're recording, okay,
No, I don't think it's recording from here, but I think it's streaming.
okay. So the other, the other thing that, I own 2 acres and at least one is and 1 acre is forested, so when you look at that, I'm like, what?
All your trees.
Except that there's a lot of Northern maples though, but that's a big, huge change, and that's that if you have a 6-inch tree in your yard, you have to get permission to do something with it. That is a big change.
Well, I've been wondering about that because I feel like this policy might, by its nature, not be equally enforceable to different kinds of people. Like in Midtown, where people don't really have many backyards, maybe their tree is out front, and so it's known that it's there. They can't get around that if they
Yeah.
cut down the tree. But then some people who have a lot of property, maybe like you could go in, you could probably clear the whole forest on the inside if you wanted to,
Mhm.
and no one would ever know.
Yeah,
People with deep backyards and around out.
Right.
It's like the person on Noon Lane. I heard that the money is from the liquor
oh,
company.
that.
She's taken out so many trees, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, but then my question, I guess this is something we can look at, how they calculated the value of these trees. If the value of the tree is based on the tree itself more so than the social benefit from the location, then that would mean that people who have more trees are more freely able to devalue the forest as a whole than the people who have fewer trees, in their front yard.
You
So
can't
the
assume
tree's a
because
tree.
You got to
they
go
have
with
more
the value.
trees, it's because they like them more.
Yeah.
Right, well, yeah, maybe,
One would hope that's the case, but
Well,
not always.
but maybe they just came into this property. and-
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I think some of it, unfortunately, if because we're on blocks, right? Maybe a tree in the backyard, maybe the adjacent neighbor back would
Mhm.
notice that and say something, but
right,
yeah, who knows? And it'll take a lot because people aren't used to that you have to get a permit. So
Right,
that's gonna
exactly.
take a
That'll
while.
need to be widely known.
Yeah,
And then, also, they need to know that if I chop down this tree and then 10 years down the line, someone comes back here and finds the tree is missing where it should be, I'm gonna get fined
yeah.
$1,200.
I don't know. I think, I just, I've had experience where people are like, no, I don't want any leaves. That's what they don't want. They don't want any fall leaves.
Right,
And that's why education process
Yeah.
might be helpful, because I think a lot of people are totally ignorant of the value of trees.
Yeah. Okay, so, he does a great job one-on-one, I know for sure. And the tree commission.
But maybe at our table at the Earth Fair, we can have something about the value of trees.
It's a great idea.
Yeah. that is
Take it from the tree inventory. It's all documented in tree inventory.
I also wanted,
Is this a segue?
I wanted to say that, we had, a guy from, it doesn't matter. A guy from New York City who was doing work, he did work for us to look at the urban heat island with the trees. And so we do have that study and, the importance of that. So we have canopy, we have the urban heat island and so on. And so that's all.
Where would that study be? The urban?
I would look, that's why we need to look at our website and see how we can bring some more stuff up on that. But I have it. His name, I think, is Ryan. But anyway, so that was a while ago. But and so anyway, if they are looking for a letter of interest or a letter of support, you need to make sure you are comfortable doing that and writing so that we can write a letter of support.
What do you mean? We should be comfortable doing that. What do you mean?
Well, some people might, overall, there may be some issues in the ordinance, maybe smaller issues, like I said, like solar, that, I may object to, but maybe it can be changed.
I think that's
So-
covered.
Yeah, okay, so
So we should all take a look at it again, read it carefully, see what our concerns are, and then agree or not agree that we should do a letter.
Yeah, but also you can one-on-one let him know, like the screening issue. You know, as I said, it's hard, I didn't read the whole thing.
I think the only thing that is concerning with me is just the wording itself. Because it does sound a little bit more like it's weaponizing trees in a certain way. Like everyone's gonna kind of get very defensive about either their ownership or lack of ownership of trees. And I'm just wondering, I think this is clearly more probably geared towards him than us, but like, how is this more user friendly? I suppose, I don't know how to address that.
The ordinance itself.
Yes, the ordinance itself, just him talking about it, it just sounded like, I wanted to be like, that's my tree over there, you know, but I'm not exactly
It's,
sure.
that's one of the reasons I asked about the prevalence of this in other places.
Right.
And so it seems like because I didn't realize these kind of things have been around for so long in so many different communities, that there's probably data out there somewhere that addresses that. And so we could,
Yes,
Do
New York
some
City
research.
has this,
yeah,
the same, almost exact thing, so I'm sure there's data.
yeah.
Yeah, if you could look it up or something.
Oh.
Because, yeah, and as he said, it was the higher income communities that started doing this, because they could afford it, right?
Yeah, like I know like Irvington has one, because I know I was researching this a few years ago. There weren't that many around here. But Irvington had one where if you cut down a tree a certain size, you've got a big fund. That's the only one that I could find in Westchester, maybe, but that's a few years ago.
Yeah, he said a lot on Long Island. Yeah, and I just thought it was amazing. One time I was somewhere, I think it was Cold Spring, but, you know, they had a sign on the tree, this tree is gonna be cut down, and it's so nice to see that, you know, so that for 30 days, people just see it, so. And just, I don't wanna go on, but I used to live on Hoffman Street, and in 40 years ago. And at that time, there were no trees, and this is the sad part of, there were no trees because carpenter ants got into all of them and killed all the trees. And and that was like 20 years before I moved there, and they still haven't planted any trees on that street, you know? It's so sad that, you know, they just let it go and there was no replacement at that time.
What about today?
No,
There still are
Yeah, there's
trees.
not-
And
still
remember
not
when there were
trees.
trees on Upper Broadway? And the city cut down the ones on Wall Street, the one on Broadway, because there were the wrong trees? We've been through several cycles
yeah,
of
no, I mean, the
cutting
one on
trees
Broadway,
instead of
the
the
ones,
wrong trees.
the sycamores on Broadway was,
That's
I
the
think it
third
was a
generation.
grant through Hinchy, the first Hinchy, that, you know, allowed, they said, oh, we got a grant to put in sidewalks, and they took all these sycamores down, like huge, it was so horrible. That was
And that was the one on Broadway,
at
or
the,
Wall Street.
at the
Wall Street.
entrance of,
Yes,
the
that's-
entrance to Broadway.
That's what I
right
remember.
by, like right where the donut shop and the bagel shop are now, you know, there on both sides. Unbelievable, so.
So maybe something, I mean, the best time to give feedback for this ordinance is right now, right, before they bring it to laws and rules. So now would be a good time to give our feedback, right? And then maybe one of these things is to address one of your concerns. Maybe when this 30-day period is up, or, you know, the signage is up, maybe there's also some opportunity for comment on the tree.
You're talking about when they're taking trees out?
Yeah. Just so there's more public input.
Yeah, so do you want to read it and come up with comments that we can all submit? Or
I
do you
would
wanna just-
so much love to, but my thesis is due
Oh, yeah.
in 1 month, and I
Okay.
just don't.
Okay.
So, but we should, if we can, we should all read it and then
Yes.
comment to
And
each
feel-
other, to the
yeah.
other members.
Yeah,
And then,
or directly to him right now, if you have an issue.
so we're
There's no
gonna
reason
write a
you
letter,
can't-
we got a red letter.
A comment is not the same as a letter of support. A
Right.
comment is just like, hey, did you cover?
No, I know,
I
but
suggest we all get in our individual, it's like we have, because we're on this commission,
Mhm.
like early advance opportunity to comment. And so we should all just do that as soon as possible. And then, once all the comments are incorporated, there's a draft, then we can send like the letter that's on behalf of the commission.
because maybe we'll get a response back from the comments and it'll be
Yeah.
the next
Yeah.
the next version.
Yeah.
Your seven
All
comments.
right, that sounds good.
Yeah. I
That's a
think
decision.
my comments, I sort of already hinted at what they are. Certain trees that can be problematic that are not included here.
I have those comments as well, yeah.
Oh, beyond
Solar,
like tree.
right, the solar is another, the word solar appears nowhere.
I mean,
I can see that being
Mhm.
coming up, and then there's no code for it, right? There's no code, so, all right, but-
it's actually a really complicated issue. Trees.
Yep. Okay, so,
One question, because I got here later,
Yeah.
so I was stuck on the cat, don't ask what happened there. But, yeah, the minutes, you.
we didn't get there yet.
Oh, all
we-
right, then.
We changed, we just wanted, Brent said he could only get
Yeah,
it
right.
for
right,
30
right,
minutes.
okay.
So we modified the agenda. We
Oh, all
did,
right. okay.
we did
Just-
old business F and we did, and
I have
Brendan said
notes
he
for the
took some
first
notes for
10
me.
minutes or so.
So,
I'll type them.
but anyway, we wanted to get started.
Yeah, I usually go through the video
Yeah.
too.
Oh,
Yeah.
Right.
So anyway, now we can go back to the review and approval of the March 2025 minutes. So Julie said she didn't have any. I sent some in.
Oh, that's a planning resources.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's such amazing minutes. They're so detailed, it's comprehensive. So should someone make a motion to approve?
I was just going to give people a chance to read it.
Yeah, I read it for you.
Historians in the future will think this.
That's great. Okay, so motion to accept as amended.
I make a motion to accept the minutes from the March 2025 CAC meeting with we didn't have any minutes, did we?
I had sent them in.
Oh, with the
Yeah,
minutes.
that's a little bit.
Second,
Okay, all in favor?
I,
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, we already welcomed Ray, but, so, do you have anything to say, Ray?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, is there anything on, is there anything that we need to, okay, planning the land use, I just wanted to say that I did send something in on Bluestone Court, and it was very simple. It just said that because it is a, I don't know what it was, a walkable village or something, that you actually do have to have some open space that is for the residents, and they didn't put that in. And that was the only comment, right? So, and I got that in hopefully in time. I didn't hear anything except for that they had, it's probably now on our website, so, on the planning board website. But, so that's for that. Is there anything else on these that, I didn't change the list.
On planning,
Yeah,
on land use, they didn't update the agenda yet.
oh, okay.
So we really don't know what they're doing. At some point, we may want to have a standing resolution to authorize a subcommittee to make comments if something comes up between our meeting and the planning board meeting.
now that we have a more robust membership, that's
Oh, you mean-
more of a possibility.
Are you
Yeah,
asking that?
something,
Oh, yeah.
authorize a subcommittee to make comments.
Oh, okay.
If something comes up, because this is going to happen
Right.
at least 6 months out of the year, maybe every month.
Mhm.
It's just
Well,
a
in the
matter of
last
schedule.
minutes, you said that Brendan and I would track it. So do you guys want to do a formal thing that's kind of deputizes us? Or do you want to think about it?
Yes, sure, that's fine.
I know you can't do anything this month.
Yes, no, but typically, yeah, that would be,
Mm.
yeah.
Does anyone else want to be involved?
I've been thinking about fun this time.
I don't know. Read these things.
Yeah.
So you can think
Okay,
either that or, yeah, talk to other people that have read them. So,
Yeah, we don't know if any of those projects are actually gonna be discussed, or
Okay.
it'll all be discussed, we have no idea.
so can you just remind me of when the planning board is versus our meeting?
We're the second Tuesday, I think they're the
Third,
third.
they're the third Monday, and that's the thing, yeah, so
Mhm.
that we get out of here, and then by Friday, we have a meeting on Tuesday, and then on Friday, we have to have the comments in by like noon on Friday in 3 days. So if we knew ahead of time, even though we were working on them, but if the minutes don't come out, they're supposed, the agenda is supposed to come out 1 week before. So
Yeah, sometimes, but sometimes
it
no.
doesn't, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes it could be that, it's gonna come up again and it's not really important. But, okay, so do you wanna have a motion for deputizing us?
Can I just suggest something to add to that one, because it's just the two of you, right? Or,
Well, me too.
Oh, you-
the three of us.
yeah, oh, okay.
See, he's been doing it all.
Right, I realize, that. I just, so like, I'm interested in this, but I can't say that I'm gonna be on this committee for, like, subcommittee forever, but maybe we can take turns, like, if the three of you wanna focus on that and be on the subcommittee, then maybe the rest of us could be like, okay, this month I'll be the extra person
Oh,
and
okay.
just sign up a month at a time.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, because I was thinking like, I
Because
wouldn't
then
mind
we'll all
going,
learn how
I
to
wouldn't
do
mind
it.
going 1 month, but I don't want to go every month.
Yeah,
So if we took turns.
Yes, and we
So-
don't go to the planning board, we just read this stuff.
Oh,
Right.
you don't have
We'll be
to.
authorized to make comments on it without having to come to this meeting to get approval.
Right.
That's my
Yeah.
And
understanding.
be a day late and $1 short, that could happen
But
too.
but definitely, I think they take switching around.
yeah, so like 3 people with a 4th rotating member, then we could just.
And among all, I mean, I wouldn't mind doing it occasionally.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay, that sounds good. And yeah, so just to be clear, Kevin will find out what's on the agenda and he may attend remotely, right?
Yeah,
If yeah.
yeah, if I see something serious, I mean,
But the meetings are all Zoom. You can just go on Zoom.
or YouTube or something. No,
Right.
not Zoom, you can't.
Okay,
you
but they
don't
are
have chat.
recorded live.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
when it's
well,
on
yes,
YouTube, you
it's on-
can't
it's
talk.
on YouTube.
Right, so,
You can-
right.
Yeah, but, and you can also watch it afterwards. But if he were actually gonna go and comment, then he would have to go in person.
Right, but we're just talking about reviewing the meeting.
Or submit it to Sue, by the Friday before.
Yeah.
Usually it's 2 PM.
Yeah.
It'll tell you.
Which is what we've been doing.
Which is, exactly.
And so again, it's like usually because, we meet on Tuesday, they meet on the following Monday and the comments have to be in, or you could go in person. If it was really a tight thing, we might go in person, but we'd still need to.
But we
possibly
should
check
be
this.
covering these meetings every month.
Well, we're covering the projects.
Right.
Not
Right,
necessarily.
no, I know, but they're at
Yeah.
the meetings.
Yeah, yeah, they're coming up, that's why you need to, because some of these projects, as you know, go on for years. And they'll sit and simmer, and nothing's happening, and then, all of a sudden, they're being okayed.
So, do we know the formal language or process for creating one of these subcommittees? Is it just as simple as saying?
just a
Let's make it-
motion, we can create our own
Yeah.
subcommittee.
Right, is that's
Okay.
possible?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so it probably should be fairly well, written, spoken, whatever. So the idea is to have a subcommittee that can follow the items on the planning that are coming in front of the planning board and meet separately to produce comments in it so that it's produced in a timely manner. And with 3 members and a 4th, alternate, or floater, or whatever, what's,
Right, and without
four.
the need to come back to this
yeah.
committee.
Well, basically, the CAC is putting their trust in this committee,
Yeah.
subcommittee. With actually 4 members, 3 are permanent and 1 is rotating, I guess is,
That's a good way to put it.
yeah.
Or, the way, the initial draft I had was input from other CAC members as needed.
Yeah, they're offering to actually
Be a fourth.
be a 4th
Okay.
rotator.
With
Yeah.
the-
So every month we'd have to say, okay, who's gonna do it?
Well, yeah, I'm trying to avoid having something every month where I have to remember to do this.
Well, we could do it the Tuesday before, I mean, at the meeting.
So at our meeting, for example, today,
Mhm.
we could say, or the committee could say, so who's going to cover the planning board meeting next Monday? The signed
Right.
person, that person then,
No, the 4th person is gonna help, but the 3 of us are.
Well, the
offering-
4th member of the subcommittee.
Right.
The 4th member changes every month. That does seem like maybe it's a
I mean,
bit
it's not,
much when we could just say, help as needed.
Help us needed.
And then,
That was what I started.
yeah.
I think-
We'll be able to do it 1 month and then do it next one, neither. do
Yeah,
it.
I don't want to-
It's like,
Well, then we get a special presentation, we forget the whole thing entirely, and then Sue Cahill has everything breaking loose all at once, and we're just sitting there going, oh, we forgot to do this.
Right.
Okay. I'm okay with that. It's also, but they're saying that they would like to learn more.
Yeah.
And so that is a way
So
to,
that's on us to be proactive, and when you say you need help, or there's an opportunity that we step. forward.
so who's covering the meeting on Monday? The planning
the
board?
3 of us,
Oh,
but not him because he's
Right.
writing his thesis.
so you guys are all going to go on,
So Kevin and I are gonna check the
Okay, so it's
list.
a motion to authorize the establishment of a subcommittee consisting of you 3
Mhm.
to track planning committee.
projects,
Planning,
Yeah,
planning.
planning board meetings.
planning board
Authorize
acti-
to submit comments to planning, on planning projects in a timely manner.
Yeah,
Which means covering the monthly
Right.
planning
Yeah.
board meeting.
I'm trying to keep it as simple as
Yeah,
possible.
okay,
without-
and do we want to say our names or do we want to just say that,
three-member subcommittee.
yeah, with the 4th, yeah, and others as needed.
We can just include your names in the minutes, it doesn't have to be in the
Mhm.
motion, right?
That makes sense. You could have a fun acronym, then your names.
Good.
Well, it's works because we could be, Beck, B.
There you
No,
go.
that's great. So Kevin, do you have the nice wording? Do you want to say it out loud?
I'll read it back and then you can just
Okay.
change it if you don't like it. Upon motion made by X, seconded by Y, the CAC members present unanimously approve that a subcommittee composed of with input from other CAC members as needed, be authorized to submit comments to the planning department.
And board, because
Yeah,
we submit to the
and
board.
Right. On planning projects in a timely manner.
Timely manner meaning that you have to cover the meeting.
Or like in between our monthly meetings.
Get it to, whatever the close of comment is, get it there,
Mhm.
which
We don't
presently
have
is the
to.
Friday before.
We're just covering
Which
the,
is this Friday, the Friday after our
Yeah.
meeting.
Mhm.
Great.
It's, yeah.
I think it sounds good.
Yeah. do
I
too.
support the, what do? I
Second.
put forward the motion?
As stated.
Okay, so you're the first,
I'll second it.
and yours.
All right, so any comment on the motion? All right,
Malia, that was very well put.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, great, thank you.
Problem solved.
That's perfect. Okay, all right, so the next, so we don't know what's coming up, so we don't have any comments on any of those. I don't think we're, anyway, so then the next thing is the Earth Fair. And so so first of all, I'm just, if anyone who is gonna be able to help, if they could just put their little initials down on that little screen. If not, that's fine. All right, Brendan,
Oh, yeah.
Here,
I'll
you
just
did
sign
it.
We're just not gonna be here. I thought I would.
Oh, no, you're not. Okay, because I'm getting freaked out about it too,
I
so.
wonder if this is the kind of thing that, and I don't know how we would do this, but I mean, so many people are excited about and like Earth Fair. Is this an opportunity for us to invite interested members of the community to help us, like, man this table? Or,
Yeah, no, we always try to recruit
It's my
their
favorite, you can
parents.
I'll bring them right back.
Yeah,
We try to recruit at the meeting, but do you know anyone? Does anyone have any spouses or friends that would just be able to hang out? Because sometimes you just need a table, someone that.
Yeah, I do have
Yeah, that's
spouses and friends.
as well.
Spouses, how many?
I'll take the.
Okay, yeah, that's
Just the
right.
one.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can put all day if you want to do all day, that's fine, so.
Yeah,
And yeah, I thought I was going to be here, but I
one of
just.
us will speak at that too.
All right,
But yeah, I can bring some warm bodies with as much education as I have to
Sorry.
help out.
okay,
But
yeah. All right, so it looks like we need the afternoon anyway, so. All right, so I guess I'll do that. Okay. And, are either of you able to come back to load a car?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna put you down as, because it gets over at 5, so, it gets over at 5, so then the session was 4 to 6 to load. Okay. All right, then, and this is Saturday, May 10th, the day before Mother's Day. Okay, just making sure everyone knows kind of that. Yeah. Okay, so I know people are interested in doing something about the importance of trees. And,
are you talking about theme now?
the theme, yes.
And
So,
pollinator, right? Pollinator is what I think we're talking a lot about.
well, the cool thing is that Jen came up with all these cool,
Great.
projects, and they are all,
Yeah.
and they're pretty much about plants and,
So that's what I thought our theme was, pollinators.
oh, yeah,
So
okay.
It's gonna be a pollinator activity, but there are other activities we could do. It
Oh,
doesn't
okay.
have to be pollinators.
But I think pollinator's a good thing, and we've talked a lot about it, it's spring.
I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, why not?
Okay, because, that's fine. I was trying to figure out if, that's fine, because we could do like wetlands and wetland protection, like we could have a map. And I don't know, just have people see
yeah,
where the wetlands are.
Couldn't you do that too?
You could do that too, but it would also mean you'd need, well, someone would need to produce a, large format map.
yeah. So I spent 30 cents at Staples to print one recently, so that's affordable to do that.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's it, all right.
Um,
All right, and then the value of trees, which is segues into pollinators, right?
Do you,
'Cause get
would you
some-
like me to write something up for like a flyer on trees, just to start a draft? Like we could print out? I'm happy to help that way. I could write something up, send it around, people could,
Sure.
just to get the process going, I'm just thinking, unless there's something that already exists.
we could maybe get
Well,
some
they're probably,
quick facts from Brent about
Yeah.
Kingston
Yeah,
streets in
yeah.
particular.
No, like, that's a good idea, like,
Stuff.
make it Kingston specific.
Right.
So I'm happy to
why are
do
we
that.
doing this when the tree commission could be doing
Yeah,
it? So-
I was thinking just something
Yeah.
really simple.
And and I think one of the things he mentioned was the mental health value that people don't talk about it.
We
which
could just have the value, certain,
Mhm.
what the value of trees are,
Mhm.
boom.
Yeah, okay,
But I would definitely talk to Brent or just run it by him or,
yeah.
and then when would I have?
Oh,
Yeah.
so this is the situation, because we did talk about this, like if you get a really shiny postcard like we did for the community preservation, it still was pretty fast, but it's whether or not anyone can actually do that work.
Oh,
Do you know what I
Right.
mean? Like, designing it, getting it to a printer, physically picking it up if it's not gonna get delivered. Or we just do something that Julie, uses a Xerox machine. Because they are very, well, they're like 50 cents a piece. So, if you do the whole fancy.
You mean like laminated with a full color?
or just like.
So
the
do you
wax.
remember the mailers that went out for community preservation?
Yeah.
And they were shiny and they, all that. It is pretty fast turnaround, but we need a graphic design.
Yeah, we have to design that.
Because who did that? Who did the graphic
I
design?
think someone at the land,
Someone at the land
Yeah.
trust.
land trust, they did
Yeah.
it.
And then we had the,
Yeah, we edited it, but then they moved it around and stuff. I mean, yeah, we edited it. Okay. Yeah, I'm feeling very stressed, so I'm saying we're not up to that. But we do need something colorful for, oh my God, wait. So we need to do this before we have the next meeting. Yeah.
And we need to have a sign, we're talking about painting the piece of canvas, so I need to know what I get, I'm happy to do
You
that.
go, tell Julie what you went,
Because
and she'll write a piece of paper out that allows you to go to Herzog's and get it.
Who?
Herzog's, Julie.
Julie, okay.
Yeah.
And what proportion?
Well, 6 or 8 feet. How long are those tables? 6 or 8 feet, right? So
8 feet would be pretty damn.
I think,
I would say 6. 6
I mean, it's
by
like
3.
4 feet, right?
6 by 3, so you can put it across the canopy or use it as a table thing.
Okay, so it's just going to
Probably
be,
closer to this size table.
Yeah,
Which we're not bringing.
Yeah.
and then it'll be hanging, what's it gonna hang on?
well, we're working on getting a canopy
Okay,
or it
So
can be
it-
on the table
Right,
itself.
it could be draped from the table, hanging down.
Or we can hang it on the fence
So I'm
behind us
thinking
maybe.
4 feet, 6 feet, it's like a lot, 4 feet.
No, I think it needs to be 6 feet,
Okay,
yeah.
I have a lot of clips and rope and other weird things that hang stuff, so.
I'm not gonna
If
ask
you
you
want-
where they are or why.
For other signs that I make.
Yeah.
Oh, you
All
make
the other
signs? You can make signs.
I used to make signs, actually.
Oh, really?
That was different length.
All right, so,
Not at all.
so if you can come up with a few other ideas and we have to figure out, so once again, the easiest way to buy something is at Herzog's. So if we decide to give away seeds, it's Herzog's. If we need mud, we don't need to go to Herzog's, but we might need
Mud?
seeds. Yeah, put seeds in a bottle of soil and clay.
I know, it's like, why would you buy
We gotta go
mine?
down to the river.
Isn't that mud?
right? It's not much.
But it has to be somewhat wet.
I suppose.
Okay, never
Yeah,
mind.
you can get clay at like a craft store,
Oh, okay.
but we don't have to do seed balls, we can do like, I have a ton, I always save my egg cartons because I use them for work with other things. So I have a bunch of egg cartons, we could plant seeds, there's other things we can do.
So the dirt comes from ourselves?
No. Oh, I don't know.
Love that, it could,
I mean,
yeah.
yeah.
Do we wanna go digging for the dirt, so do we wanna find a spot for that, and like in the seeds and everything else? Yes, like one location, is that the easiest way to do this?
You mean like buying potting soil and,
Yeah, if we can get all the stuff for the table at one spot instead of making multiple trips all over the
Yes,
place.
so we need a list.
Yeah,
But I think I'm gonna let you just.
I'll just do my
yourself.
thing because I'm
Yeah.
gonna paint it.
Great.
Um,
Do you know what day is our next meeting?
so that's what I was thinking, I think it's.
I hope it is.
No, we're the 13th.
Yeah, so
Oh,
that's
okay.
why everything has to, okay, so maybe we probably just need to have Jen give us, decide, and then we have to come up with the,
Like which activity we want, I'm gonna even be there,
I know,
so it's gonna be up to you guys, like what you wanna handle. There's one thing that was like a scavenger hunt, that would be the most hands-off, like you give kids a piece of paper that has like pictures of like a flower, and they go find a flower, and that's the activity.
but they don't pick it.
No, that's the only thing to tell them, yes, you know, we leave nature objects in nature. So that would be the most hands-off, all you need is like Julie to print out papers, and you need like pencils.
Yeah,
Or you could go all the way in the other direction and do seed ball, which is the most supplies and the most hands-on. So up to the people who will be there.
I really like seed balls, but I don't know. where
I do
we
too.
play. It's just so fun.
There is I'm sure you could probably, and I haven't checked their stock, but there is a ceramics supplier in town. And they have a variety of clay there, I don't know what.
I'm sure you could go to like Michael's too.
Yeah.
Or Joanne's are going out of business, if they're still there, they would say, they had.
Would you, what kind of clay do you get?
Yeah,
You
I'm
don't
sure.
get-
That sounds
I was gonna say, the clay of the ceramics place that's in town has a little bit more with technologies that I haven't been to their stock yet. I was planning on checking them out for other stuff this week.
Yeah.
I could just see what they have.
Are we allowed to make this decision outside of this table?
Yes, because we were
Okay.
supposed to do it, we just didn't have any
We just didn't,
meetings.
yeah, okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
okay, I mean, if we're gonna do things like, you know, you could, I don't know, if there's something that's like a poster that they're gonna like put a pin in it or something like that, then someone needs to do that,
Yeah.
and we gotta get moving on that, so.
okay, well, I'll volunteer the day before, or whenever works, I'll run around and pick up the shopping list.
Oh, I think we should do it beforehand, because,
Okay,
yeah,
so significant whenever
yeah,
that needs
okay,
to be done, but.
all right,
That either, we need to
okay.
catch up on multiple things.
Yeah, great,
Okay, yeah, because I might be out of town until the day.
okay, but we really need to figure out what's on
Yeah.
this list.
Okay, so we're gonna have
Sea
a,
moms or balls, or whatever they
I
are.
like,
I like
I
the
like
seed
the.
balls.
So, yeah, let's do that.
You can call it seed balls.
Yeah, not sea bombs.
Oh, really?
Well, yeah, parents get upset and kids get upset.
Seed spheres.
That's it. So,
Yeah.
Warps.
it's good, you're gonna want like a hand washing bucket too.
Yeah,
Oh,
Because it
right,
gets really messy.
yeah,
yeah, so we gotta figure out if we can get the water. So by the way, we've been in the past along the fence at the Maritime Museum facing the Matilda.
mhm,
So the water would be either the Maritime Museum or the Clearwater Barn.
got it,
Yeah,
okay.
because if it's, or the Hudson River, I guess we could dip it down.
So they probably have,
Yeah. Where's the,
I mean, the roundup,
they probably have like a hose outside, I would assume, for
yeah, they
any
might,
of that
Is it
dark.
really a gallon?
yeah,
yeah.
right,
So, I mean, the toilets aren't that far away. Okay, all right, so we will, figure out if we have to talk, or just do it by email, we can do that, so.
And also we're doing a list of pollinator resources, right, that Jen put together.
Well, it doesn't print well, right, because a lot
Yeah.
of different links.
Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, don't we want to have something about that?
I thought you
With
just said
trees?
you were gonna do it.
With trees.
Oh,
We talked about
Well,
valuing
we can find
trees.
something, I'll find something that already exists, because there's so
Yeah,
many
right,
pollinator
yeah,
resources.
yeah.
or I mean, couldn't we just have like a nice picture with a QR code that links to this great resource? I mean, it's the most important thing of these pamphlets, and you know, honestly, are these things people are going to take into their house and put up on the refrigerator and keep forever? Or are they things they're gonna
I
look
think if
at,
it's a planting list, they
they might actually keep it,
Yeah.
and then that would be good,
yeah,
okay, so that would
more
be,
so than a QR code, I think people would know immediately
all right,
right,
in the river.
okay, then that makes. I'm down.
all right, good.
Okay.
So we're done with that one. Okay, so I want to just say that I think for the wood smoke, the item follow-up was whether or not we're gonna do anything with the fact that for 20, if it's below 25 degrees for more than 2 hours, it doesn't apply. Because that's what we learned. So I don't, this is something that we need to make a decision if we're gonna try to change that and put it in front of a committee, for in front of the common council to change the law. And this is something that, it's not gonna come up for 6 months, but it takes a while. So,
So you're talking about like removing that exception.
yeah,
I don't think we should, because a
right,
while ago, you brought up that fact of
Yeah.
people who don't have homes, who live in
Yeah.
their cars. And I think that's a valid point.
okay. Any other comment?
Yeah, no, I looked into, I had this notion that, the emissions might be more hazardous to air quality during cold weather events. And there might be something to that, but no one's really sure. And I don't think that outweighs the
Mhm.
human impact. So I don't know, and we don't know, how bad is that really? How many people are actually gonna be?
What's the scope of this issue? Yeah.
Right, is it worth the
Yeah,
effort?
I'm not sure it's worth the effort.
okay, all right, that's good, then we can, and the only other follow-up was that, we did send an email or a letter to all the schools and nursery schools to let them know that there is this law. And, we didn't hear any no one said, oh, we'd love your flyer, give us some more flyers or anything. But we can do it every year at the beginning of the year, it's pretty easy.
And Julie said that some schools have signs out.
Well, yes, and we did ask them if they wanted a sign.
Because it seems to me every school should have a sign, that would be helpful.
Well, that is up to the DPW, not to the school. The school can ask for a sign, but the DPW is going, or Julie or whoever says, oh, everyone goes to the post office, leaves their car running, so there's one there, the schools and stuff, but, and they just need to have the money for the sign. The city has to.
Right, because then it seems to me we would go to DPW.
Yeah,
It's
like
like,
she
should be a sign
Julie
up at
would
every school.
take care of it, yeah. So that's good, so we can, at least keep that up. And then the only other one was we really haven't had any action about the other thing we were watching was the gas-powered engines for the yard work and, I think the Parks is more interested in doing it than DPW. So, but we can keep encouraging.
GBW never responded, they never
Right.
acknowledged any of our notes, right?
Yeah, but they complained about it, to other people, so, yeah. So, but we were gonna have a meeting and I haven't followed up on that. Okay, so going on to the Ulster County Renewable Energy Implementation Plan, that came out, she gave it to us. Comments were due on the 28th. I sent some comments in. Did anyone else?
I
put
did.
any-
I
You
sent-
did? Great,
A
great.
ton of comments.
Oh, good, okay. Does anyone want to explain to the group kind of what the plan is about? Or, yeah,
Yeah, so the plan is, it lays out the city's renewable energy goals and discusses a couple of options that the city could pursue. It settles on solar as being the primary avenue for making the change to renewable energy, and then talks about a couple ways that the city could implement solar.
My main comment was I thought they didn't, they went all in on solar and kind of like had brief explanations for why none of the other renewable energy options are optimal for Kingston. And just as you know, this like at Bard, we've gone all in on geothermal. And so I was just confused about why geothermal wasn't more comprehensively explored. And that was my main comment to Julie. And she said, we probably haven't looked at it closely enough. And so I think they're gonna at least leave
Oh,
that a
that's
little bit
good.
more open.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
They also didn't do solar thermal for hot water heating.
People are aware of the TENS meetings,
No,
The TENS are I forget what it stands
the
for.
Thermal Energy Network.
Right.
Never heard of it.
Geothermal.
okay.
every Wednesday.
Well, fortunately, she said, so
I'm not, I can't make it every
our
Wednesday.
energy manager from BARD, who manages all
Right.
this geothermal stuff, is on one of the committees that Julie said, so like,
Yeah.
the right people are
Yeah.
involved, it just hadn't really made it into the draft plan, so.
Yeah, they did mention the 10. And that's like it's like having thermal energy that more than one building can use.
Well, it'd be a network. It would,
Yeah.
it would start at the Andy Murphy Center and it would come over here. It may or may not include the hospital or the high school, probably not at this point. And we've been interviewing and getting presentations from people in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and Rochester, Minnesota.
Oh,
We've
wow.
been chasing the people in Framingham around so we can finally get a hold of them to present. And there's a woman, Jean Bergman, she's down in the city, New York. And she's been involved with this. Simon is involved from MHET. And
Simon Strauss.
Simon Strauss and Susan Gillespie and some of the MHET staff.
Did you feel like it was covered enough?
And
in
Brett Orquist from engineering, and I attend when I can do it.
But do you feel like it was covered enough in the?
Well,
Right?
it sounds like it wasn't,
Yeah,
yeah,
it didn't
But-
jump out,
but
yeah.
Julie is definitely on the case with this. I mean, we're meeting every Wednesday pretty much.
Wow, that's amazing. And that would be all pretty well. I mean,
And the
it's-
crew that I just mentioned, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, that's good.
But that would be for municipal buildings or anything?
It could be both, it could be both. And, another side discussion to it, which hasn't come to the forefront, but we had earlier discussions on this, was involving Rondout and the cool air and underneath
Oh, the
Pittsburgh
caves.
Park.
The caves.
Caves
Mhm.
and the underground lake. But that's been tabled for the moment. And there's a lot of-
I know, well, that was definitely not in this.
Yeah, no, Julie won't discuss that.
Yeah, right.
There's an underground lake in the Round.
Right, like-
Yes, underneath the business park.
Yeah,
I know what I'm doing tonight.
Not very-
right where Kevin lives.
Yep, yeah, right next to my barn.
So is that called an aquifer?
No,
It's-
it's,
It's
well,
small, it's
it-
small, but it probably was part of an aquifer.
no, it's not an aquifer because it's a cave with a lake, with an open water body in it. So
Contained
it is
water.
part of a groundwater, but it's,
That's an interesting discussion to have, with Paul Rubin or Kara Gentry.
well, just if you just look at it,
hydrogeologists.
if you just look at a geology textbook, it's not,
It's not called that.
it's not,
So to get back to the plan.
Right,
yeah.
I do want to note that I was talking to Phil Green about this. And I mean, if you look at the plan, you saw it was like 56 pages or something. Apparently they made this, it's like an appendix to an Ulster County document. They were only supposed to produce 2 pages of information for this. So what they're doing here is they're going above and beyond to try
Right,
to really scope out what they're doing. So that means any of the feedback that's given, especially about geothermal, probably will be pretty well received.
and they
Yeah,
had
it's
huge,
really
lots and lots of numbers. They really crunched the numbers.
I think I just read
About
the
how
executive
much.
summary, I didn't read all 50 pages of it.
right.
But is that where it mentioned, the induction? That the city has installed an induction range for some affordable house? I mean, I was.
No, it's not.
That's something
things
different,
like
that's
that.
something I fixed it up, but I didn't read it.
Okay. No, so yeah, this was because the county wants to reach 70 by 30 and they asked all the towns to kind of come up with their own plan. And some towns didn't, and Kingston really took it all the way so they could really plan for the 70 by 30. It's 70% renewables by 2030, right? Not 30, yeah. Anyway, okay, so and I did hear a press release that the county came out with kind of their final thing. And part of it is whether or not, the grid is available to take on certain things, so. Okay, so we're at 7:36. I just wanted to take a moment I'm gonna go out of order, but Julie gave me, updates So I'd rather just say them all. There's no information on the business park. There's no update on the Brownfield Opportunity Area, which is uptown, Midtown Thriving. There's no update on the LWRP, Scenic Hudson, River Cities. You know, they want to put up these game cameras to see, look at the critters that live in Kingston, and apparently they're mostly going to put them in parks. So she has been meeting with them. She met with them in Hudson River Cities, which is part of Scenic Hudson, is going to give them a map of where they might want to put up the.
And she'll tell us the next meeting where they're going. Because they should get one out of the business park for sure.
That's a good point. So where is that one? Oh, there, it's on M. Okay, I just wanted to give you that right away, so I don't. Okay, all right. So I didn't get any of your Kingston Organics. Do you have anything?
We're at 1150 participation
That's great.
individuals, and I think at this point we've diverted 65 tons of waste or something, which saves about 50 tons of CO2 equivalent. Which is, it's okay. I mean, it's great. You know.
And by the way, Julie's at an organics meeting and presenting, so that's why she's not here. And by the way, next time, we should just use our budget to pay your way.
So come again?
Yeah, if you wanted to go to that meeting, we could have used our budget.
Oh, that would have been, no, I was thinking about just borrowing a ladder from a friend and then doing the trick where you like walk in with a clipboard and a ladder. Just to get into free places, but I know.
Yeah, thanks for setting up the meeting. Okay, the native planting, we already talked about the planting resources. And I think, you know, we had stuff on the spotted lanternfly, but I think we just need to ask Julie to start putting stuff up on the website, because she's the person, right? Yeah.
Emily, you missed the Kingston Point Park improvements.
Oh, that's me. Okay, thank you for pointing that out. Okay,
Isn't there a public hearing coming up about that?
yes, there is, thank you. Okay, so I'm on the pack for that, which I'm not really, what does pack say? So I'm on so we had a meeting last week, and there is gonna be a public meeting on Tuesday, April 29th. So I guess one's on the tree one is on Monday, and the public meeting for Kingston Point is on the 29th. And so it's pretty, so we had a field meeting, and so this kind of explains it, but anyway, over the years, there have been improvements at Kingston Point Park. And the next one is when you're driving in to the park, there is a very flooded parking lot on the right, and then up the hill is the BMX track. So we're talking about that side. And then the next thing up on the hill is the softball field, and then the dog park. And what was decided several years ago is that the park floods every day at high tide. And so they're taking this parking lot that used to have X amount of parking spaces, and they are declaring this one area actually as a wetland. They met with DEC. DEC said, yes, it definitely is a wetland, and they will have to ask for a jurisdictional determination. But between like last year and this, the DEC decided that they wouldn't have to take the asphalt out in order to make it a wetland. They feel like there's enough plant growth in the cracks and on top, and on the mud on top of the parking lot, that the wetland plants just keep moving in, and they will, and they don't have to pull up the asphalt, which is really.
Yeah, sometimes like not doing anything is a
Yeah.
mistake.
Yeah, so then what they're gonna do though is that halfway, like in that part, that there's gonna be flooding on the wetland on one side, they're basically putting a berm in, so to keep the water from going any farther. And
Into the parking area.
yeah, and then the parking is going to remain there, but they're gonna cut back and put more parking in. And then there's already a road on this far side, so that you can take a road, the BMXs, instead of, they used to just come in to the entrance of the park and go straight up to their area. Now they will be like going up the hill, past the baseball field, over to get to the BMX. And there is gonna be some cutting and raising of the parking lot.
But the parking is gonna go towards the dog park, further in the park?
No, I think they're just raising it.
Because when they say raise it, I'm trying to picture this thing. It's
4
gonna be
feet.
like, it's gonna be high up.
Yep.
It's gonna
So
look
right
pretty
now-
bad. It's not gonna look. unsightly.
No, it won't.
Okay.
So right now, on the other side of Delaware, there is a parking area, and that was raised also, which I didn't really realize.
Oh, that was already raised.
That's all, it used to be a playground, they moved the playground, they made parking, and the parking is higher up. And eventually, they are going to raise all of Delaware because you still have to let the oil trucks get back and forth. So they are gonna do that. So they're doing this in parts, and the funding for the Delaware is different. But anyway, that's what they're doing, and
Is there any role for our committee in providing comments or anything like that? Or
No.
it's just, okay,
Yeah.
I just given the third.
Oh, yeah. I just want to let you know.
Yeah,
because
but I said a picture from 1910, it was all flooded, and it always was marsh.
Yeah.
So we might,
Oh,
they just
but
let
then
it go.
also the
Instead of
ball
putting-
field and everything, that's
That was a
a ash landfill from the incinerator, and they can't like cut into it or anything.
But rather than
Okay.
raising all this stuff, I would just let it go, because it's gonna flood the whole thing.
Well,
That's my opinion.
because partly is because they still have to let the oil trucks get to them. So anyway, but so they are letting the wetlands become wetlands. So,
That's the good news.
okay, so I don't have anything on spotted lanternfly. Jen's gonna figure out because I know Brianna did some work and you have some work, and we should definitely be putting some stuff on the website. And we already talked about planning resources. I don't have anything right now to report on wetland preservation next steps. But Brendan, do you have anything?
No.
Okay. And I just wanted to say that if anyone wants to go to Norrie Point, there is a vernal pool thing, but I guess I didn't bring it. So there's a vernal pool thing on Saturday, the 19th at Norrie Point, where you can learn how to be. So if anyone wants that, I can send it to you. By the way, how many people like get the DEC blasts, like you can sign up for specific ones? Okay.
Daily updates, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I should get, so you just
Yeah.
go to the website.
And you
get
say
it?
what you're interested in. You can say you're interested in solid waste or the Hudson River Estuary Program or, okay. Let me see. So Lower Sleepers Stream Management Plan. So they got some money, the Lower Sleepers got some money to do this capacity building project where you kind of come up with your mission and so part of the Lower Sopa Stream Management Plan implementation was to get a watershed coordinator this is not hiring a watershed coordinator, but it is kind of getting a group of people together to start thinking about how to form an entity. And that is meeting, somehow I got on it. If anyone else wants to be on it instead of me, you could be on it, but it's funding through the Hudson River Estuary Program and the Hudson River Watershed Alliance.
Is there a space on that for someone specifically representing this commission? Is that why you're saying that? Or is it just anyone who wants to be
Like keep tabs.
It has, no, it doesn't, I don't know, I think they, just because Kevin and I have been following all of this stuff, that they asked if I could do it, and, yeah, and anyway, so it's just another step, and hopefully, and there's one meeting on the last Wednesday every month until July, during the day.
No, that's the one, at the Soil and Water Conservation District, or is this a different?
It's not meeting there.
Okay.
No, it's, they're actually gonna meet here.
Okay,
For the first meeting in the end of April. Anyway, so that's what's happening with that. I don't have anything on PCBs, flushable wipes. So what happened was Julie made this point that I'm going to just keep bringing it up. You can tell me to stop, but Julie made the point that is this an environmental issue, or is this really a problem with just cost at the sewage treatment plant? And I did go back and I did a tiny bit of reading, and there are two things. One, when you clog the pipes, then there can be sewer overflows into the body of water. And the wipes, if they make it like through the system, they're basically, even if they degrade, they're basically like fiber, and I assume it's polyester fibers, so it's plastic fibers. So those are the two biggest
But it's a wastewater treatment plant issue. I mean, that's what, when we met with Alan, right?
Well, it is,
They
but
didn't have any, they couldn't say anything to us because it's like their bailiwick, right? Like,
no,
they're the ones that have to fix it.
no, that's not,
Well, we can
that
tell
wasn't my
people-
impression.
That was my impression, that they already have to get rid of these things. So we were gonna help promote not using the flushable.
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
and we could do that under the reason that when we flush these things, even if they don't destroy the wastewater treatment plant.
Right, that's what
they-
you're
we're-
saying.
We're putting
Yeah.
plastics directly
Yeah, you're saying
into
there
the
is.
plant,
Right,
and that is an environmental issue.
And there is this.
and the
legislation.
sewage
Yeah.
and combined sewer,
Right.
sewer over.
So
Well, that one, I feel like I understood from the treatment guys that we aren't having that clogging issue here because they maintain it so regularly.
Yeah, I mean,
But,
that's what I thought, like.
but
they
it's,
were-
yeah.
All right, so
Yeah,
anyway,
But if you're saying our role would just be to publicize, market the idea that people should not flush their wipes.
right,
So we had talked about how we would do that.
right, and then the consensus was, Julie said, well, if it's not environmental, you shouldn't be, it's not really the CAC's issue,
Well,
but it is environmental, is what I'm bringing back up.
Can
But
I- sorry, can I propose that right now we decide, I mean, I think we can all agree this can be an environmental issue. Like, should we agree that we want to do something about it, or whether we set it aside? Because otherwise, I feel like we'll just keep having this.
Yeah, I just think we should
Conversation.
set it aside for now because Julie was kind of definitive. I mean, yes, it's an issue, but.
Oh, I think it's really whether or not we have the energy.
That's
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, we
Yeah.
can put some energy into it.
Do we, I don't really have a lot of energy to put towards
No, I don't really.
flushable
Right,
wipes.
well, because, okay, that's fine. I mean, let's just, how does everyone else feel?
Well, I mean, I put energy into it, and we kind of were left hanging. What do we
I think
do?
it's a good issue for a future Earth Day.
Okay. Yeah, well, all right, everyone buy some flushable wipes and like put them in water and let them soak for a year, and then we'll show them what happens.
Yeah, sounds great.
Exactly.
Okay, good, so that's fine. So we're doing okay with recruitment. We definitely need to, so the next thing is CAC outreach, distribution list, recruitment, and website. So the CAC outreach, we definitely do put a clipboard with people's names and ask them if they're interested, and then we will follow up at the Earth Day.
Do we have other people that are, applying? Weren't there
They-
some people online?
Yes, but they didn't, I mean, I reached out to them again and.
They didn't follow up.
They didn't follow, right. The distribution list, I just want to make sure that if you go on the CEC's website, you can sign up to be on the distribution list and you can sign your friends up or something so that they get an announcement. Recruitment, we're still doing okay, but if there are, did you ever hear from the Barb brothers, the brothers of the
I
Barb?
did not know.
Okay. All right, if you can just, and then the website, I think I think again, like, I mean, it could definitely be jazzier, but just at least trying to get some more, like spotted lanternfly, pollinator.
Yeah.
Speaking of all the DEC lists, maybe we should just put a link on there to that as an additional resource too, to suggest that people can sign up for these other
Oh, yeah,
newsletters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's great.
Do we know who we go to get the website updated? Is that just Julie for sure?
I
Or
have
does she
no
go to
idea.
The communications person, Summer.
A good start.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah. I'll also say on the website, there's like a Meet the CAC
and it's
page,
not up to,
and it's like totally not updated. I don't know that we necessarily need the page. Might be
No,
easier just to-
So how do you get to the page?
Well, if you go to the CAC's website, there's a side banner that says, look up Kingston Conservation Advisory Council.
okay, so
And,
first of all, you go to the city of Kingston,
Right.
and then you go on the left, it says
Origin
community, it says,
Commission.
commissions.
And go and then see,
And
and
then
then click on
it'll
it.
drop down.
That's what you mean by a page.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I will say.
Yeah, we
when I
just need to remind Julie that, you know, Helen's. not
Right,
on.
right.
Right.
And
Yeah,
then-
well, and like, and the Meet the CAC page is like, I think that might have been updated like 10 years ago.
Oh,
It has
that
a
one,
little
yeah, so
bio
there's
for you.
one that just has, I know, someone brought it up
It's
to
very
me
sweet.
like a month ago, and I was like, oh my God.
So my thought though is just, when I first moved here, I saw there was a conservation council. I saw, there's a small little box at the bottom of the main page that says the current members. And then there's a Meet the council page and they have different names, and that made me think, what's going on here?
Oh,
So
yeah,
I think just
okay,
in the image of our,
yeah.
the interest of our public image.
Yeah.
All right,
I think that's like last year's board.
more than that, yeah,
That's the
okay,
page board.
Well, no, Ted is on it now, Brianna,
yeah.
the one I'm looking at, me, Ted, Brianna, okay.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
then Julie updates it?
Well,
We'll figure that out.
okay, so do you want to handle that or? do you
Yeah, I
want
can
me-
handle it.
Okay, yeah. And the Meet the one is like you basically wrote a little bio, and so we could just have her take that down unless you guys want your bio up there.
I don't need that.
Yeah, and I think it's harder with privacy and everything to have those things up there, so. Okay, thank you for bringing that up. Okay, summer CAC meeting schedules. I wanted to figure out now whether or not, does anyone know if they are not going to be here on July 8th?
It's too far in advance.
It should be here.
Okay,
And
I've got it on my schedule.
okay, I'm not going to be, and Julie can be. So, all right, how many people think they're going to be here on July 8th?
Well, it should be. One thing that came up with me was the Kingston Land Trust was considering having a fundraiser that week, and Greg put a save the date for July 8th after I had told the Land Trust, that's the date of the CAC
Okay.
meeting.
But we
And
could
then
go
he
afterwards.
changed it, at one day this week, the week of the 8th, and I'm like, well, the 8th is
Okay.
Tuesday.
I would be very interested if we do hold a meeting on July 8th. I would love to hear from Brendan and Cecil.
Yeah.
Yeah, what is your thesis on?
it's on municipal composting.
Hey, that was
Okay,
Oh, yeah. Sounds like great.
that's great.
Wait, July 8th.
Yeah, well, we could do it in June either.
A month before it's due.
We could do it in June.
Could we?
Do you
Or
want to-
sometime.
We'd love to hear it, we'd love to
Yeah,
learn.
I'd love to do that. You can also, if you're on Bard's campus for some reason, like May 24th, will be presenting that.
Oh, May 20, I'd like to go to those talks.
Oh, shoot.
I used
I
to
should
like
have
to
said
go to them. I love it.
You know, my findings are, I do a cost benefit analysis of these programs generally, and I created a tool for municipal planners to use to see whether it makes sense for them to do one of these programs.
Oh, that's wonderful.
It sounds
Sounds-
fantastic.
Well, the findings are really interesting. It seems like it's not always a great idea, which is counter to what I initially thought. Well, it's kind of a lot of money for, I could get a.
Right, yeah, the teaser.
Yeah, that definitely,
Yeah.
I mean, we really like
Results
it.
will surprise you.
You've intrigued us.
Yeah.
Okay, what about August 12th? Does anyone know if they're gonna be out of town? August 12th.
It's just too far in advance, but
Okay.
it's a big summer. Probably.
You don't know, okay,
I do know in September, I will not be around.
okay,
That's-
I will not be here in September either.
oh, okay, okay. So I
Too far in
got,
advance. The rest of them, that one, even farther.
okay. No, okay. That's good, that's helpful, so it looks like, it looks like we'll be okay for July, even if I'm not here. And August 12th, it looks like Julie's gonna be here on August 12th. So, okay,
The thing with the July meeting is a CFA. Support letter.
oh, right.
That's a kind of a big deal. We have to approve of that.
Mhm.
What's
Yeah,
the-
so the consolidated funding application, everyone has to put in like all the applications for every funding, every state funding thing, so whether it's Department of State, DEC, whatever. And that's when we okay the letters of support. And then I usually send them out.
And that's
physically.
in, what was the date on it?
Well, they're due like July 20.
July.
Late July, so we have to have the letters in by the meeting on the 8th.
So, yeah, okay. And maybe we can revisit in June. If it seems like we might not have quorum, maybe we could
Mhm.
authorize another subcommittee just
Yeah.
to.
I think there is a quorum, it's just that I'm not gonna be here.
Okay,
So, but you guys all said you were, so that's
Great.
fine. I just didn't wanna, okay. And then, I guess we might as well just say how about, who said no in June?
Me.
You, okay,
Well, it's a maybe.
a maybe. And that is, that's the 10th? June 10th. Okay. Why isn't it on my calendar? Okay. All right, that's good.
So September looks like it could be a problem.
Yeah, yes.
Let's revisit that.
Yeah.
June will have
Yeah.
most of the
Yeah.
people, July will have most of the people, August,
We're okay.
we're okay, and September could be trouble.
Okay. All right, I think we should not, unless there's something someone wants to bring up, we'll go on to reports. I already announced that there's the thing on the tree preservation on the 28th. There's something on the 29th for the Kingston Point. And then, this. Legion 44 is a movie about the carbon dioxide removal, which is a way to get carbon dioxide out of the air and put it into rock or other things, and it's gonna be at Upstate Films. I've already seen it twice. But it's finally being released. And it's really, and it's by this filmmaker that lives in Chatham. So I don't know if you, anyway, so I can send you the announcement, but, I just printed it out that way. And what date is that? Did you notice?
There's no date on there.
Oh. Oh, my God.
There's no date.
Oh, never mind. That was so stupid. Okay.
Well, we can, I'm sure.
We can sit up
Look,
there.
that they don't.
Right.
Website, yeah.
It's a private thing, but it's Sustainable Hudson Valley is putting it on.
Okay.
But and I will send out the actual invitation. Okay. So I don't even know, so in terms, are there any other announcements, communications, anything that we should know about? Okay. Complete Streets, I don't even know if they're meeting. Public Safety, I do go to these meetings and they always politely listen to what I say. They are interested in flushable wipes. I did bring up the idling thing, but they didn't like say yes or no or anything, but we've kind of decided we're not pursuing that now anyway. Kevin, anything on Climate Smart?
Roberto showed up and he did the green hydrogen presentation.
Oh, wow.
With the little car that he has. He bought this car that, I think it was at Barnes and Noble. It's pretty soon. And he converted it into running on green hydrogen. And he has a whole technical thing that's really lost in the weeds as to how it works.
Mhm.
And he ran it in the other conference room across the table and back and forth.
Cool.
Yeah, now the problem with green hydrogen is that it's not really commercially viable at this stage in time. So that's.
Kind of like fusion, right? Fusion, they've done it,
Yeah,
but it's not,
yeah.
they're a long ways off from making it
I
commercial.
think this is much closer. I think that there are places where they are doing green hydrogen on the West Coast, but and that got into a really lost in the weeds discussion. There were all sorts of rabbit holes with people talking about blue hydrogen and gray hydrogen, and they were all confused. And then he presents them with the chart and they can't read it. And, yeah. But yeah, the car worked, let's put it that way. And if there were funding, the whole project would work. Roberto and I were working on trying to find a corporate entity that would be willing to take a look at Kingston for this as a model project, but no luck so far. So that was I don't know if there was anything else. So, I mean, that's a meeting that's almost as long as this meeting, so I don't know if we want to go really into everything, but that was the highlight. And some of it is crossed over with the city projects and all that.
Oh, well, wait, what about your paint collection? That's an
Oh, the
announcement.
paint
Oh,
collection.
thank you
Julie
so
just
much,
sent
I
that
registered
out.
for that.
Yeah, Julie just sent that out, and I'm
Did
trying
everyone
to
get
see-
that then?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm trying to see if that was actually mentioned in the meeting.
So they're,
The old paint cans, I assume?
yeah, but they're taking oil paint and everything.
Yeah,
It's lucky, 'cause I was
May
just painting my
31st.
house and now I have a bunch of empty paints, or slightly, almost.
yeah, that was a one-liner at the meeting with a link to Green Sheen. So you've all seen it, so you.
He hasn't, but
all
but
right.
why-
We should get
where
to
is it happening? Oh, it's at the Kings, is it part of Herzog's then? No, but it's Green Sheet.
Yeah.
Okay,
Just in the parking lot.
Mhm.
well,
Great.
figure out.
And that's, was that the 21st of May or something? What's the date?
31st.
31st.
Great.
And there's gonna be a whole crew from Climate Smart there.
And just, when I signed up, I know you have to sign up for a specific time slot.
Oh, thanks for mentioning.
Yeah, you
that.
can't
That's like
just,
the hazard waste
You
pickup.
can't just show up whenever you want
That's-
during that.
That's what the county does with hazardous waste.
Yeah, so this is just paint, it's not everything. But that's cool that you're doing that. Okay, so the Legion 44 film, which I don't like the name, by the way, Legion 44. I can't figure out what it has to do with carbon dioxide. But it's April 21st at 6:30, Monday the 21st, so that's actually not that far away. Okay, NISAC, we're just moving ahead on NISAC. It is going, remember, it's going to be at the Ukrainian Center in Kingston. You guys should all try to go. Now, I should have this memorized, whether it's a Friday and Saturday, so it's October 23rd or October 24th, or whether Saturday, got it, Friday, got it. So the Ulster County Environmental Management Council, we met, and, oh, the amazing thing is like, the the, Europa McGovern left and is going to the city of Poughkeepsie
What?
into the planning department.
She left
She's,
the
yes.
Department of
she-
the Environment?
Yes,
Oh,
and she
Wow.
took a job with the city of Poughkeepsie where she's oversight, like building and planning and whatever. She's a development director.
what?
Yeah, it's so
Wow. That's a
exciting.
huge jump.
So she
Who
was
is this?
the
I don't know who you're talking about.
Europa McGovern, she was the head of the Department of the Environment. Like the Department of the Environment
Ulster
had
County.
Okay.
Amanda Laval, and then it had the younger man, Nick, and then Europa.
So is there a
And then-
succession crisis? What's happening now?
Yes, and then Michelle Gluck is going on maternity leave, and she's like, and then there's two new people that, and I don't know who they're gonna,
You looking for a job?
I am,
Yeah.
well, you know,
Yeah.
they should have hired me months ago.
So you need to double check in there. So there's a woman named Evelyn who is working there and a man named Misha. And yeah, so that's a real big change because she at least had the institutional memory. Yeah, and she lives in Poughkeepsie, so she's really happy. It's good to see that she did that, yeah, and as I always say, the Environmental Management Councils, the CACs are all doing so many different things and they're all great, you know, whether it's flushable wipes or they're NRIs or solar stuff and all of that. So the Community Preservation Fund, I have you down as Jen is going to talk about that.
Okay, yeah.
Okay,
We had our first meeting on the 20th. Just kind of met everyone and figured out what we were doing. We have a chair who is Bert, I don't have his last name. right now. Samuelson, thank you.
okay.
Yeah, and right now we're just trying to figure out the application process for how people will apply for funds. And we set our regular meeting date, which is the fourth Wednesday of every month at 8 a.m.
8 a.m.
Yeah, that was my fault. Oh, we all have like all these conflicts in the afternoon, they want us to do during the day, so we just like do early morning. And I think that's all I have. Do you have anything else, Kevin?
No, I have to get you all the minutes.
Mm,
But the minutes for that meeting are not like the minutes to this meeting because it's gonna be much more concise,
Yeah, and we've got.
specific to projects.
So you're both on,
We both are.
that's great.
Yeah,
And so-
all the land trust people.
And so right now, is there any money? Yeah.
Yes, there is a little bit
Yes,
of
there is.
money.
Yeah,
I
there
don't
is.
have it written down right here, but a few $1,000s. So it's
Great.
in there. I think there's like 2 transactions that had money put into the fund, so.
That's kind of exciting.
It's exciting. Yeah, not much we can do with a few $1,000.
To start.
And Bert developed a project application template.
Oh, that's great.
That's gonna be really exciting this week.
Yeah, yeah.
What your first project is.
I got our first application, probably gonna be jewelry.
For
I
the,
imagine for the one that they just bought.
yeah, for the, I'm sorry.
The wilderness.
The Wilder, Roundup,
Yes.
yeah, the 70.
Uplands, run that
Yeah.
uplands?
Minor uplands or Kingston wilderness, however you want to phrase it.
Um, So I just want to say that also Kevin had sent out this zoning working group letter. And it's pretty cool that the zoning working group just started. And they already have come up with, this is to look at the form-based code and see how things should, what possibly should be changed already in the form-based code. And so they're already have sent these suggestions through, which I guess they go to the common council, and then the common council has to take action. There wasn't anything that jumped out at me that was of interest from the CAC.
You forward those to us.
I did.
He
Yeah,
did,
yeah,
yes,
just-
but I wanted to just bring it up in case you didn't read it. The one, you know, off-street parking standards is always kind of a concern for everyone.
That pertained mostly to handicap accessibility, ADA parking.
Okay,
That comes up at public safety, if anybody here has been representing us in public safety, which I used to do, that's what they do.
Meaning that they would
Unfortunately,
amend it
meeting.
to have a requirement for that?
Now, people come with, like older people come with, yeah, my constituent needs an EA parking spot here, there, and everywhere. And then they all have to consider it. Yeah, so I think this was to kind
Yeah.
of streamline or expedite that process. And conform it to the form-based code.
And Tanya's on that.
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, but we sent them a letter and they didn't take that up. It was about the large solar.
Oh, right.
But they didn't take that up in this, but these were things that they said, they felt like they should bring up right away. And some of the other ones, they want to wait and see kind of how things come up. So anyway, I meant to talk about that in the planning thing, so now, all right, community preservation, tree commission. I didn't go, but we heard from Brent, and so, and then Hudson Valley Alliance for Housing and Conservation. Do you have anything, Kevin?
We're still kicking around policy, whether to do, statewide community preservation fund, which doesn't seem to have much political backing. We're gonna make the ask anyway. I think that Pete Lopez is involved with that, with Carly from Scenic Hudson, both of Pete's also at Scenic Hudson. There is a backup plan to just limit that to the Hudson Valley, if expand it to Columbia and Dutchess counties. We already have it in Ulster for the most part. And they have
Oh,
it,
wait, do you mean housing or preservation?
preservation, I'm talking about first. Preservation.
But it's already Dutchess County. Oh, it's just some
No,
town?
Just certain town, Red Hook.
Oh, I didn't
Right,
realize
This
it
would make
was
it
in.
countywide, in Columbia
Yeah.
County, there's a
Right.
push for it in Columbia.
And
County.
apparently Orange County opted out.
Yeah, they
originally.
did, although
Yeah.
Warwick is in, they were the first one.
Right.
Many years ago. So, and then whether to combine that with the housing initiative is a whole different thing. There's more support for the community housing, but we don't know if that extends statewide or not. And the budget is still being discussed, so it's not a done deal.
But this is something that just, besides just working on what could happen on the Hudson Valley, they're gonna do lobbying or whatever,
Right.
advocate for statewide preservation fund. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the other subgroup that meets is a municipal working group. And I attended that for the first time. I'll probably attend it again. But we're already, we could be like the poster child for what we should be doing. We already have a form-based code, we have a community preservation fund. And
Oh,
so-
Kingston should give you
Yeah,
the, yeah,
right. That's why I was attending the policy meetings, not the municipal meetings, but
Mhm.
it does help because I can provide the insights as to what had
Yeah.
happened, what we had done,
Yeah,
and present it to the people that are trying to do it, and we do pushback.
yeah. Okay,
That's
yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, because I'm trying to decide if the NISAC should cover community preservation fund, especially, but if it's not gonna happen in the rest of the state, it's not gonna be of interest. But it would, anyway.
Well, it's of interest in the Hudson Valley for sure.
Oh, yeah, and I didn't realize that just wasn't.
Oh, yeah.
All right, is there anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
All right, thank you. All right, June 8th.
Anyone who wants to take meetings.
I do, I will. I'll take it. Go ahead, you want to?
No.
So do you have to watch, so I can't flag you.
I didn't get right at the 28th.
I like you, I think.
Yeah.
Bill created, send me an email, call me.
Yeah, I guess the first thing is, if everyone wants to put you both is what, if you want me to pick up stuff.
Were you giving your presentation on the 24th?
It's either the 22nd, the 23rd, or the 24th. I can send the thing when
Is it a bunch of people from the Center for Environmental Policy that are all presenting?
That's right. Yeah, so
I'd love to go to
I'll
those.
be presenting with maybe 3 classmates, presentation for 20 minutes each, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm intrigued by your findings.
Yeah,
It's kind of counterintuitive,
it is kind of counterintuitive. A lot of it just has to do with operational
but this is why
costs.
research really matters, you know?
Right?
It's very practical, it sounds like, which is great.
I think so.